All right. Let's go ahead and get started. Thank you so much for everyone joining us live. I know that it's a busy day today, Tuesday, right after lunch. So thank you so much for joining us for a session talking about effective job hunt strategies that you can implement right away in 2024 and also beyond. So today I have a distinguished guest, Michael LaManna. Michael has been an industry specialist, professional, a leader, working with the largest companies in the US, in the world. So he has so much a great experience. He also works with companies in terms of turning around operations or working with their HR or some of the tools or technology implementations, marketing, sales. So he has the acumen of working with individual groups or team members or departments. The reason why I invited him over to our session today is because of the breadth and the depth and the versatility that he brings to the table in terms of working on even siloed groups or agile groups or team leadership, working with them. So there's different strategies that he's going to walk you through today and talk about. And I'm super excited. Michael, thank you so much for joining. Thank you so much for coming in and talk to me about before the session. What were your thoughts going in your mind coming in? I know that we're talking about job searching 2024, the trends and tips and things that we're going to give everyone. We're going to also have a Q&A, live Q&A session. So as you drop in your messages, we have the ability to respond to at least 15 to 20 questions that you have. So the first 15, 20 people who would ask a question, it could be about, is a cover letter important in today's day and age? Or is resume, the ATS system, is it a thing? Or how do I network correctly? Who do I talk to in a company? So we're going to answer all of those questions today during this session today. So thank you, Michael, for joining. Back to my question. What were you thinking when you're coming in to this session? What are maybe some pointers that you can give people right away, whoever is listening and joining us live?
Yeah, Chewy. So thank you so much for having me today. I really appreciate it. Appreciate that introduction for sure. There's a couple things I think about for job hunters and people looking for jobs or employment or opportunities. I look at it like running a company. You need to look at a company. The resume is just like a P&L within a company, right? It looks at what you've done backwards, and you've really got to connect the dots on how you got all your career and how your career kind of manifested itself. And you really need to take a look at what you've done. Within that, you have to do the preparation of what you want to do, and you got to paint the picture of what you want to do in the future, right? So your resume is critical for that, to write that story and really tell that story. But you have to tell it in a way to where all the dots are connected and you can tell that story in a unique, special way that really resonates with people and really how you affected an organization.
Absolutely.
So that's the first thing. I think if we want to stick on the resume portion of that, it's so critical because obviously, you know, Chewy, these days, all companies, probably 85% of the companies are using what they call these ATS systems. And what are these ATS systems? These ATS systems really vet you before you even get to the hiring manager or through to the company. So maybe you could talk about a little bit about what the ATS systems do and why doing your resume properly and making it ATS friendly is so critical. To get not only your story correct, but get your story through the proper systems to get to the hiring people.
Absolutely. So a couple things matter, right? I mean, one of the first things that you want to think about is today is the age of AI. Everyone's talking about it, but AI is not a new thing per se, because a lot of companies were using AI. Like, for an instance, business intelligence is one of those things that you've heard over and over again. If you're in the space and you're making strategic decisions based off of what's happening in your business, same way the hiring process has evolved as well. If you're looking at, say, 2020, about 68% of employers, medium to large size companies, were using applicant tracking system software programs. Now, today, 93.7% of employers are using applicant tracking system software program. The same medium to large size companies have more of these companies are using applicant tracking system software programs. So that system itself is going to look for specific details on a resume, because what it does is it copies and pastes the job description and then copies and pastes your resume and then looks at it and compares them together. So it's really looking for a set of keywords, phrases, topics, lingo, verbiage, competencies, years of experience, achievements, type of sort of details. So if you take the breakdown, on average, you might have seen on LinkedIn, there's about 500 or so people applying for some of these roles. So that has also evolved. If you look at the State Department report for labor, there are more jobs added in 2024 than 2023. So what has really changed, right? But a lot of people are not getting responses. About 75% of applications coming in gets a rejection message saying, thanks for applying for this position, but we've decided to go with someone else at this very moment. So, or we'll put you in a list that list never gets looked at later because it's kind of not really a short list. So what really boils down to is we need to think about, when you're thinking about the resume, you cannot present a biography. If you're presenting information freely, be careful, because if you're giving them too much, that's so much to read. You're showing how age discrimination will come into play naturally, because they feel like, oh my gosh, I have to read all this information now to understand what this person has done. So you have to freely give them enough information to get you in the door. That's the job of the resume. So that's where I would kind of focus on, and then understanding the ATS system. I mean, there's a lot of companies using it, and about 75% of those applications seems to get that thanks but no thanks message. And then about say 150 people would get looked at by a recruiter, because that recruiter is more so going through the job posting and then the resume, comparing them together, see if you are a good match. This is where, if you were to add a bunch of keywords and your resume looks like a keyword salad in that sense, this is where you can get rejected from an employer standpoint. A recruiter is there as more of the human gatekeeper to catch people from doing that. So you want to be careful, because that's why at the Job Helpers, we would recommend you to embed the key terms and then have the explanation built in with it. Like, say, for instance, if you're talking about your career, talk about timelines, goals, deliverables, measurables, and then start to input requirements that they're looking for. So if, for an instance, say they're looking for a key term of cross-functional collaboration, you could talk about different teams you work with, different type of sectors or different type of tiers of departments you work with, or maybe partners, vendors, contractors, outsourced entities, anything that you can discuss to match that specific criteria. So,
Chewy, that's such a great point, because as you're doing your resume, as I said, it's like the profit and loss statement in a company. It's always looking backwards, but it's good to verbalize and walk through yourself in your mind on what you've done, who have you collaborated with, who have you worked with, what kind of projects were you on. This way, the proper information can get onto that resume. And in fact, the proper conversation, which is one of the next parts as well, is the interviewing piece. Interviewing is an art, it's a skill, it's something that you need to practice, even if you're not a speaker or on that sort of platform. It's good to make sure that whatever you're presenting to somebody, you have your story that's accurate, seamless, and kind of fluid through the conversation. And that's one thing a resume will do for you. When you look back 6 years, 10 years, 12 years, you generally forget a lot of the details of what you've done that made you successful. And as you're going through on a personal level, the resume process, everything technical that Chewy understands and the Job Helpers understands, it's really about getting your story straight and then mapping it to the technical requirements that people are looking for in that resume. So that's a great point, Chewy.
You bet. And when you're interviewing, think of it this way, okay? Amazon is very popular using this technique, the situation, task, action, result, outcome, timeline, sort of type of details that you can bring in. Watch what you're saying, at the same time make it super positive, because everyone likes a good story, everyone likes the hero, everyone likes the princess to be saved at the end. So people love hearing about those kind of, I mean, we grew up with this, right? So you want to think about relating and resonating through that, and then talking about the positive side of the story. You might have had something that you had to improve on, or something was a mistake that you made, and then you started to learn, hey, I could have done this differently. So now you've learned through it, right? So talk about the learning that you've had, and also put a positive spin on it. Talk about specifics that you learned, what you learned, and how long it took you to learn that process. And then making sure that that you're kind of really talking about an example and giving them a storyline to go with it, because that would help them to kind of picture it, because you're reliving that story. So relive it with them, or they can live that story with you in the same moment. So that makes it a lot more impactful.
Yeah, and it's very difficult when you're in an interview and people are asking you, well, where did you fail? I think Chewy brings up a good point. One of the things I think you want to be is positive. You want to acknowledge what didn't go so well, but maybe put it in the terms of, there's a few things I think I would have done a little bit differently in today's space, and not necessarily say, well, I failed at this, or I didn't do this well. Everybody knows we're all growing, right, in the business. I'm growing every day. I'm meeting people that are smarter than me, better than me, and they're helping craft my offering and what I do for people even better, because there's great, smart people out there. So don't be afraid to say, there was a situation where maybe I had an employee working for me. I probably, in looking back, being the armchair quarterback, there's a couple other ways I could have probably worked with that person or that situation. But at the time, the way I dealt with it, I feel like I could have done better. So it's acknowledging, but not really just kind of slapping you down, because it's very easy to fall into that pit of, boy, I'm not good enough for this job. I did fail. And the reality is, even the person that's interviewing you has failed once upon a time, or 2 or 3 times during their career. So don't be afraid, but make sure you verbalize it in a way to where, it was a learning moment for you. Because at the end of the day, when you feel like you haven't succeeded to your maximum, that there's always a better way or a different way to do things. Even if you succeed, you always look back and go, maybe I could have done that a little bit better. So interviewing is so great. And I really encourage people to practice interviewing, getting some coaching interviewing, because it's a very, very stressful situation. So anytime you can get a little bit of coaching, anytime you can really practice with people, it does an enormous value to yourself. And you can really do this, which is one of the 4 legs of the stool that I always talk about in this realm, is networking, right? So you could spend a ton of time networking. There's a couple things I've learned about doing networking. Be intentional with the person you're with. Be completely present with the person you're with, whether you're on Zoom, on a phone call, in person. Be present. It is so easy to get distracted by everything, as we know, right? Everybody talks about being distracted by everything. Be super present. Be intentional about meeting with them, and really don't ask flat out folks for a job. Ask them for advice. Hey, I've been doing this, and this. You're in this industry. How would you advise me to approach this industry? Ask for advice. People really want to help people. That's what I'm all about. I mean, that's what I do in Precision 180. I'm all about helping people, which helps people and businesses. So when I put those together, it really makes a lot of sense for people to engage with me, because they want to help. They want help. They want to get better. And they know they need a little bit of assistance doing that. So I always look at it as when you're networking or getting coached, professional athletes, they belong to a team. They have a coach. They have a nutrition coach, a skills coach, a strength coach. They have all that around them. And then what do? they hire their own staff, right? Patrick Mahomes is a classic example of this. He built his own gym, right? There's a lot of folks out there, guys and gals, that build their own gyms and facilities to do stuff on their own as well. So you need a collective input to really get the best product for yourself. And if you look at that when you're looking at either looking for a job or perhaps making a pivot in your career, that's the way I would go about it. And when somebody says to you, hey, yeah, you've got a great background, you've done a lot of great things, but you haven't been in this industry. My suggestion has always been, and what resonates with people I talk to, is tell them why you're excited about the industry and what's available that you think, and you want to learn more. And by the way, the reason why you think you're going to be successful there is that's when you bring the resume and say, look at all these things I've done. They've been diverse. I've been able to pivot myself, and this is what I'm excited about going forward. So those are some of the things I talk about. But networking is a contact sport, whether it's Zoom, on the phone, texting, believe it or not, is networking, and meeting people in person. You can't meet 100 people a day, but you can meet 10 people on Zoom rather than 1 or 2 people for coffee in real time. So when you meet somebody real time, make sure that it's worth your time, and you could be very, very productive there.
And when talking about LinkedIn, because LinkedIn has over 1 billion people use that, and me and Michael this morning were talking about this. LinkedIn is not for closers, meaning you cannot close on a conversation on LinkedIn. You're opening up a conversation on LinkedIn. So there are 2 different things, right? I mean, if you want to close on a conversation, you have to get them face-to-face over the phone or some elsewhere. A good seasoned salesperson would tell you this, because you don't want to end the conversation on LinkedIn, because then you could give them next steps and all of that, but you have to understand the body language. You have to talk to people. That's how you're going to get them to root for you, because if not, that personal touch is not there as much as you want it. So what will happen is, if you're having, like, say, Zoom conversation, or you're having coffee with them, or you're going face to face, you want to make it more memorable. Talk about them. That's one of those first things I would talk about every time. When you're talking about anything or everything, talk about them. Like, say, for an instance, Michael, I would talk about Michael in our initial interaction versus myself, because you want to respect them and then come back, because they're naturally going to pivot to you and say, what do you got going on? That question is going to come back to you, right? So you want to wait for that question to come back and not be so anxious of presenting yourself. Because a lot of people, what they do is they just go in and talk about themselves, where they can get into a pitfall of not knowing enough about the other person they're talking to. Take all of our relationships that we've had. One of the first things that my wife would tell me is, you need to be a great listener, honey. So that's the same process here. You have to listen before you speak, or you have to ask them questions to narrow down what they have accomplished. LinkedIn is a great place for you to go and look at their career and then pinpoint, hey, you have done X, Y, and Z things that would matter to me. Say, for an instance, if you're in cybersecurity or IT or IoT, any of these other fields like HR, medical, healthcare, you name it, nursing. All of those are professional relationships that you're working with other team members. You cannot do everything yourself. You have to understand this. That means you have to use other people's help. That means you have to give them a chance to help you. And at the same time, you have to communicate. So that communication comes from talking about them, and then coming back to you, because they become the top priority. And how you can approach and you can put this into practice is, like, say, for an instance, if you're talking to a hiring manager, first step for you to do is to look at how many years of experience they've had, how many years they've been with this organization. So that would give you a good starting point. I would bring those things up, saying, okay, you have had this really amazing career for over 15 years. Seems like you've been in supply chain management. I see that you've been with X, Y, and Z or Amazon, for an example, for over 3 years. That's pretty impressive. I was thinking, there's a lot of things you must have learned throughout your years. All they need to say is yes. I didn't ask them an open-ended question there up front. The reason why is because people are not ready to answer your open-ended questions right away. Don't do it. Give them close-ended questions. Ask them a close-ended question to get that conversation started. It's like jump-starting lighter fluid.
Yeah. So, Chewy, that's a great point. And as your slide says up here, LinkedIn networking, it is a secret weapon, but LinkedIn is changing every day with how people interact with LinkedIn. It used to be 6, 9, 12 months ago. You could send information on LinkedIn and ask somebody to buy something or engage with you that way. These days, what I do is if I want to engage with somebody, I ask them a question. I say, hey, I'm Michael LaManna. This is what I do, but I'm looking for some insight from you on this, this, and this. Are you willing to have a 15-minute conversation? So ask them, try to engage them, try to get their knowledge, because number one, the knowledge will be amazing, what you can get back. It's amazing what people will share in their experiences, or you'll go away going, wow, they are so elevated from where I am and where I want to go. But it really, really does yourself a good service when you DM. DMing is people are DM fatigued. So ask questions. If you really want to connect with somebody, be very clear and upfront. Hey, I'm trying to connect with you for this reason. Are you willing to have a conversation with me? Be very direct, very short, because everybody is getting DM'd. And in fact, the one thing that people are really, really having a hard time with LinkedIn right now is when somebody does a DM and they respond to say connect, they get an automated message saying, hey, do you want to connect because I got this, this, and this to offer, or, I want to sell you this or that. So be very conscious of who you're connecting with. People are inundated with messaging. As you know, it's just like a business. I treat it like a business. You go into a meeting. If you don't have a clear agenda, you don't have a great meeting. If you don't have steps you have to follow, like a business operating system within a meeting, you're not going to have a successful meeting. How many times have you walked out of a successful meeting and going, okay, what do I have to do? Who's engaged? What's happening here? You have to make sure that you're asking the right questions that I found, and really, really trying to start a dialogue instead of just a quick connection. It doesn't matter how many connects you have in LinkedIn. It really matters about the conversations you're having. And the same thing with networking as far as posting in LinkedIn. People are posted fatigue. I mean, how many times have you seen the people that you're following, if they're not influencers, are sending just constant things out for you, and now they're getting to be 27 sentences, right? Cut that information down. Just give them 2 or 3 bullet points to think about, or things that you found that has been helpful for you. That is super successful on LinkedIn right now. So those are a couple points I'd make on LinkedIn.
You bet. And Mato asked a question saying, is this conversation being recorded? Yes, it is. You can watch it later. We could share this session after the LinkedIn Live is complete. So you should be able to go back and watch it later down the road even. And let me ask you this. Let's get our viewers engaged here. Ask them a question because they're not asking us questions so far.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So from the people that are watching, what are you finding in the job hunt? We hear unemployment is low. We hear people are trying to hire, but people are having a tough time getting hired. What are you all finding out in the field right now from your experience? And what do you think you're doing well? And what do you think you need some help with?
Absolutely. Post those questions on your LinkedIn comments, and then we'll get back to you. And all your answers we'll be able to show it right on the screen itself and reflect and answer those questions as well. And another question I would ask you is, are you getting messages saying thanks but no thanks? I mean, that's a message that you're going to get when you're on a job search. Or are you getting the coveted message of, oh, you're overqualified for these roles? I mean, we get that a lot. Let's talk about that for a second, Michael. What does that mean, overqualifications for roles? Lots of people get it. If you have over 10 years of experience, expect yourself to be overqualified for these roles.
Yeah. So it's a very interesting question, Chewy, and there's a lot of reality to what you're saying, right? Being overqualified. The bottom line is, if an organization is looking for help, they'll find reasons to say yes. If they're looking to just niche down on a particular thing, get younger cheaper, or get more experience and more expensive, they're gonna lean toward that way. So it's just not about your ability. It's really trying to find out what they are actually looking for. Are they looking for talent with certain experience? Are they looking for talent that's younger and less expensive? These are real dynamics that happen in an organization that have nothing in common when you're interviewing with somebody directly. So take a look at that. But one of the things I will go back to is, as we're talking here, listen, to me, it's a four-legged stool, right? It's you have to get your resume, right? Your resume is your P&L. It takes a look back, but really go through your resume, go through your stories, talk to your significant other or your friends, and say, hey, is this resonating with you? How do I do this? Am I telling the right story? Does it sound like it fits together? Am I getting better at it? Right? It's just like anybody on TV or radio. The reason why they're so good is they do it constantly. So your resume, you need to talk out your resume out loud to really resonate, not only with yourself, but get some feedback as well. And then once again, use a system that has that can leverage ATS and really keyword searches. That is so critical to a resume these days. You could write the best resume in the world. I always say a resume is in the eye of the beholder. But if you can map it within ATS and keyword searches for that job description, boy, that puts you up the ladder quite a bit. So I would definitely do that. LinkedIn, once again, LinkedIn is another piece of the stool. Get your profile updated. Keep it updated. Post once a week, even if it's once every other week. And don't fatigue people with a long dissertation about going out for dinner. Make sure it's relevant to your business. Make sure it's relevant to what you're looking for, those sorts of things. And don't be afraid to ask questions to get engagement on it without question. And then the last piece is, we've already talked about interviewing and networking, but networking is key. You've got to network. You've got to get practice. You've got to get the conversation going, because so many people say, hey, I don't have anything, but I know somebody that does. So that's what I would look at doing for sure.
So a couple things, right? I mean, one of the first things that we want to do is to answer questions. So Aisha, thank you for the question. Aisha Huck says, applying but not hearing back or getting a template rejection response, even though I meet the requirements. Great question. Thank you. Let me show you a few other questions that are very similar to each other. Huge competition, 550 applications for many jobs in 2 days, according to recruiters. How do we cut through this? And thank you, Ann Deford, for the question. And then also another question is, roles are being pushed. Thank you, Jeff Van der Hagen, for that question. Roles are being pushed and hiring is not a priority right now. And then we have a question from Corinne Wallace saying, ATS systems are hard to beat. I'm getting automated rejections. Very similar messages that we're getting when we're asking a question of, hey, are you getting responses? The question that we asked was, hey, what are you seeing in the market? So most of the attendees are saying the same thing that we're seeing. We're resonating with them. Yes, this message is so much more familiar to us as a service who works on resumes every day. We've heard this story when we work with someone, because that's kind of the number one thing, the ATS rejection, saying thanks for applying, but we've decided to go with someone else. Or this LinkedIn user is asking, have you noticed that companies are slowly stopping to hire until after the new year begins? That's a legitimate concern as well. So let me answer those questions for you. The first question itself, ATS systems, yes, they're in play. They're going to remove about 75% of these applications coming through. So if there's 550 people applying for these roles and it happened within 2 days, within 72 hours, you're going to get those rejections. So watch for those if they're coming through. And if it's over 15% of rejections, this is kind of a rule of thumb by working on, or over 55,000 resumes, we know for a fact that if you're getting a rejection message for 15% or more of these rejections are kind of slowly trickling in, that's a problem. That means you need to have the right keyword saturation. What does that mean? I'll go into that in a second here. But then also,
well, hey, Chewy, why don't you throw in there a little bit? Corinne asks a great question. She says, that ATS systems are hard to beat. Well, there's tools out there that can help you with that, right? Not only with, that are AI backed, but also have the keyword searches, but also mapping that specific resume to that particular job is critical. It's gone from the days where you have one resume and you just hand it out. You almost need to tweak it a little bit per job if it's changing the trajectory of what you're looking at. So keep in mind.
Yeah, and that brings up a good point, right? I mean, we created a process, and initially this was kind of in our head because we were kind of thinking, okay, we're resume builders, so we need to get access to the ATS screening process. So what we did was we took that extra step and created Job Pro Max, which is a system that we have active, 250 active jobs that are posted right now as we speak. It's a free tool to use. What you get out of this is that ATS scan that you absolutely need to pass through the ATS screening processes that employers are using, because this is a culmination of Workday, ADP, iSIMS, three major systems. So we use those kind of the baseline technology to recreate our process so we get a better rate. Let me show you what I mean. So say if I were to apply for any type of job, say, let me go to United States and then pick a job title, or say remote jobs that I can look at and then get a matched rating for those jobs. Job Pro Max has the ability to tell me, okay, principal service designer is matching 60% against my resume. So, or corporate communications manager is matching against 50% of my resume. So what I've done is I've created a free account, uploaded my resume, and then now all of a sudden it's checking for grammar, it's checking for ATS keywords, it's checking for all of the specifics that the resume needs to have, and it's going to give me a rate saying, okay, you're a 56%, you're good on the ATS match score, but you could do better on the other aspects. So for an instance, I need to improve my ATS match score. So there's these specific key terms like media relations, strategic storytelling, journalism, corporate communications, that kind of keywords I have to add absolutely to get selected for this specific role. If I wanted to copy keywords, I can easily copy those keywords as well. Or I can continue to look at, okay, soft skills, what am I missing? Okay, I don't have strategic on my resume. So if you have strategy on your resume, you wouldn't get selected because I didn't have the same terminology, strategic. So think of it that way, okay? So that means that even if I have the word strategy, it didn't pick because it didn't know to pick the strategic out of the strategy. So that's kind of really specific type of methodology the ATS systems are using, especially Workday. So you can come in here, you can get the soft skills and the hard skills, and then understand what specific keywords you're missing, how to improve your resume. Looks like I'm missing the job title. And then also I can improve on my format. It's in a PDF format. It's telling me I could do a Word or Docs format. The reason why Docs format is important, like say Microsoft Word or Google Docs, the reason why it's important is because about 16% of ATS systems cannot read PDFs today. It's still the situation at hand. So you don't want to take your chances or take a risk of presenting a PDF document. Or you don't want to have specific, like say, icons or pictures or special fonts on the resume either, because then it might not pass through because the system couldn't read the picture. So for an instance, some people have a picture on them of themselves on the resume. Big no-no, because that picture might get you rejected for that specific role. The system didn't even want to read the content. It just pushed you to the side saying unidentified object. Or some have a side-by-side format where they have information on the left side, information on the right side. That's a big no-no as well, because if you have, like, say, skills on the left side, education on the left side, the system might only read the left side and just not even pay attention to the right side because it's just reading from left to right, top to bottom. So you want to know these intricacies of the ATS system when you're thinking about the ATS score and why am I not getting selected. There's more of a data-driven approach to do this. So something like Job Pro Max can absolutely help you to at least put the right keywords into play, so that way you're getting picked for the positions that you're targeting and applying to. To answer the question of are hiring managers not hiring nowadays? Are they pushing it out to 2024? The answer is it depends. If there's a position and if they have budget allotted for it, they have to spend that money today, right? So, or this year before end of December. So don't think that they're going to push it out. And also, people have that same mindset, right? So a lot of people will stop applying for jobs as well as things get slower and slower, or thinking, oh, hiring managers are not going to check on my resume. They might not be on holiday, whatever the reason may be. But that creates a window of opportunity for you to get in front, because now instead of 500 people applying, now there's 200 people applying for the job. So you don't want to slow down your job search because of the holidays. I would say increase the intensity, because you'll have a better chance of getting hired this year versus next year. So
yeah, let me jump in there a little bit, Chewy. So I'm looking at some of these comments, which are great. Let me go to Darren's comment, Darren Brooks' comment, real quick. Yeah. Well, the good old days are gone from just mailing in a resume and following up with a phone call. But I would suggest you use some other techniques. If you know the hiring manager, or you know the contact of that hiring manager, don't hesitate by sending them what looks like a personal note to their office. Send them a card and say, hey, I'm super interested. This is what I do. Are you interested in having a conversation? Or because here's what even the recruiters within organizations are finding about the ATS systems. It's kicking out more good candidates than just because they're not hitting that criteria. It's not getting personalized. They're not getting to know you, right? It's almost like, I look at this almost like a sports thing again. So you know how sports people do a highlight reel? So how do you create a highlight reel? People aren't looking at a highlight reel. They're just looking at a resume as your highlight. So how do you do that? And going back to Scott's comments, I'm not saying, get 12 or 15 different resumes. But certain job descriptions are looking for highlights on different things. So I would go that way. I would definitely leave one on LinkedIn and wouldn't change it, and put a note in there. Based on the job description, I will tweak my resume to accommodate a specific job. So that may be something that you can think about as well. Because the reality is, as I said, for me, I've learned a long time ago, the resume is in the eye of the beholder. And if you can make a connection with somebody and then make it viable what your background is and how you can achieve and exceed the job requirements and really be a positive influence on that organization, is super key, right? It's all about personal connection at that point in the game. But back to Corinne's earlier point, how do you get through the ATS system, right? Which is a critical piece. That's why I always say a resume is needed. You've got to really look at your resume. You got to be able to speak to your resume. You need to accommodate the resume to people, but you need to verbalize that. You need to be very comfortable in that conversation, because at the end of the day, you're going to be speaking to somebody. This is a contact sport, right? And look at it like that. You need to be talking to people. You need to be meeting with more people, blocking out an hour a day, hour and a half a day, just calling people that people that that know somebody, that say, hey, I know you know somebody. Can we have a quick conversation? I'm looking for some advice. Get in the format, and don't worry if the first 35 calls go awry. Get better at your call about what you're asking for, the advice you're looking for, the contacts you're trying to connect with for this sort of industry, what the best things are about the industry they like, all those sorts of things, about where the industry is going in their mind. So think about that when you're connecting with people.
And as I mentioned, Job Pro Max is a tool that is going to give you a list of keywords. I mean, you'll have to do it DIY, right? That's a fair assessment, Darren, because you have to copy and paste the keywords, and you have to copy and paste the job description right here. If you have one, or the system can auto-generate one for you, or you could go into the jobs that are posted on Job Pro Max, the 250,000, and then look at those jobs and run a resume scan right from the get-go, and then start adding the keywords. That's more of the DIY process. But let's look at a few things that you can easily do. As a service, the job helpers, what we do is we guarantee 4 interviews for every 10 jobs. Now, let's talk about that for a second. How can we even possibly do that? How can you give anyone a guarantee? Are you guys out of your mind? Well, we have written over 55,000 of these resumes, and over 99% of our customers are getting interviews within the 2.5-week window, which is kind of substantial, right? So how we go to do it, and you can do this yourself, by yourself. What we would do is, our process is, okay, we'll ask you some questions like what kind of titles, what kind of locations, what kind of salary expectations, and what industries you want to target. That would give us a better indication of what roles are available to someone like you. And then what we can easily do is, and I can show you, say for an instance, let me share my screen and show what I mean by let me stop this and then present my screen and then show you how I do a Google search. Like, say for an instance, IT manager jobs. So all you need to do is, you want to think about Google as a place to go versus LinkedIn, Indeed, Career Builder, because they're all limited to jobs that are advertised in those platforms. And stop using Easy Apply on LinkedIn, which does not work, because a lot of jobs have Easy Apply. It's easier for you to apply. Just like that, it's easier for others to apply as well. So there's 500 to 1,000 candidates, and then a recruiter cannot physically go through all of those 500 applications that have come in. So that'll get stalled. If you were to instead find the job opportunity on Google and find that opportunity on the company site and apply, you'll get a better chance of it, because that company site is hooked up to something like a Workday, which automatically parse your resume against the applicant tracking system software program. You'll get a better response there versus using Easy Apply. But let me show you how easy it is for you to look for jobs anywhere on the internet on Google, because now we have created Job Pro Max. We know for a fact that all these jobs are listed on Google Jobs or in a search engine. So if I'm looking at IT manager jobs, or say project manager or program manager jobs, let's change it to project manager. Let's change that. Project manager jobs. So now there's jobs coming in from anywhere. And the beauty of this is, you can go into this and click on 100 more jobs, and you can click remote if you want to look at remote jobs, or you could choose an area. So all these jobs, like say for an instance, the first role, remote worker CA, anywhere, and it's posted on LinkedIn. Second job, assistant project manager, remote, posted ZipRecruiter. Senior project manager, A-Line Staffing Solutions. You would never get to A-Line Staffing Solutions website, right? Or Nectar job is posted on Glassdoor or via LinkedIn or company site. So there's so many ways that you can kind of make your job search efficient, and this is one of those ways to do it, because now you get a list of jobs. And the beauty of this process is you can set up alerts. So for an instance, if I were to look at some of these job roles, I can easily set up alerts from here itself. So for specific roles, I can say, okay, where I live in West Fargo, North Dakota, I could say I could set up those alerts for myself, and then go into specific roles and then look at all these roles and then save them into your own dashboard. So then that way you can go into favorite jobs and then find those roles and then come back to them later. And then Google has this amazing ability to give you a notification. So for an instance, if you're setting up a job alert for project manager jobs, remote near West Fargo, or say remote jobs overall in the entire US, I can set up an alert, and then in the future, you'll be starting to get Gmail alerts on your phone saying, okay, there's a job posting and this company posted this job a few seconds ago. Go ahead and apply for the job. So that'll also put you to the front of the list. So you'll be one of the first people they would be talking to as well.
Yeah. So this Google access it's free, right? It's just like LinkedIn. Unless you got Premier, LinkedIn's free. Use these networking tools as you can, for sure. Google is a great way. As Chewy said, everybody's locked in that, well, I'm looking at ladders. I'm looking at Indeed. They don't always have the same jobs because it costs money for those companies to post those jobs. So they're going to where they think the IT talent is, where the sales talent is, those sorts of things. That's where they're posting those jobs. That doesn't mean that particular source is good for you. Whereas Google, if you pull it up, it'll tell you, okay, this is on Indeed or Glassdoor or whatever, and then that's where you're going to have to apply. That's fine, but at least you'll know the path.
And as the job helpers, our first step is to ask you those questions like what kind of titles, locations, salary expectations, and industries. Do you have a preference for the company size? And then we'll go through these job listings, just like what I did with Google. We're using ChatGPT, we're using Microsoft Copilot and Google's Gemini, 3 different AI programs to build or pull all the job listings to one place. And then we have access to the ATS system. So we're running one at a time and then building out a list of all these keywords, phrases, topics, lingo, verbiage, competencies, years of experience, achievements, sort of type of details. Now we have an active list of maybe 1,500 keywords that are coming up out of, say, hypothetically 100 jobs. Now we have a usable or a list that we can use against these opportunities, but 1,500 is too long, right? Too many. So you don't want to use every keyword in the book either. If you were to look at the first maybe 60% of those keywords that are repeating itself, that's a good start, honestly, because then you can map that back into your resume and see, have I talked about this? Have I not? Is this something that I need to address a lot more? Do I need to be comprehensive? Do I need to bring up maybe timelines, goals, outcomes, measurables, anything that you can talk about specifically against those specific requirements instead of talking about yourself over and over again, repeating yourself or saying the same thing or you might feel good about some experience that you've had. For the hiring manager, you're just a number, right? So, you have to present it based off of what they're looking for. So when we're building the content for a resume, we're going to make sure that it's over 80% or higher on the ATS search result as a ATS match rate. So we know for a fact that when you're applying for these jobs in the future, we've looked at jobs that are already posted for the past 30 days. So chances of having the same exact information is so much more because now we've looked at the most trendy keywords and we're using that to your advantage. And then we're adding them against what they're looking for. Say, for instance, hypothetically, say years of experience. Say you have 25 years of experience. If you have 25 years of experience and you call it out on the resume, you're going to be overqualified. If you were to say, they're looking for a minimum of 15 years of experience. If you were to say 15 plus years on the resume, all of a sudden you become a good qualified candidate. Why? Because you said something that would match against what they're looking for. And then because of that, the ATS system screening software program checked a box. The recruiter checked a box, and then the employer also checked another box. So now all of a sudden you're kind of in that 3-legged stool. You're now getting passed through the gatekeepers and then getting to the actual person, and they feel like they need to talk to you because you have a minimum of 15 years. So that's just one example, but there's a lot more like cross-functional team collaboration, matrix team environments, processes, technologies, methodologies, training. I mean, I can.
Yeah, so Chili, that's a great overview for sure. Let's look at so Mary Beth has a great question. So does Ann. Let's take a look at those. Mary Beth, Chewy's got to talk to this in 20 seconds or less because I want to get to the next question as well. There's a couple up there that we haven't got to yet, but Chewy, what do you recommend here? Do you go directly to the websites? Go to Easy Apply? Do you do both? What do you do there?
So Easy Apply, if you have an option to apply on the company site, always apply on the company website because Easy Apply is I don't know if anyone listening in on the HR side today, but they would know the difficulty of the back end of LinkedIn, because once a job is being posted, and then there's applications list, you get to see all these people, but there's 250, 500 people applying right away. What happens to the hiring manager is they're not going through all of this. A recruiter is not going through all of this. Versus if you apply on a company's site, it'll be much better because the automated system will pick your application, match it, and then put it into a shortlisted box, so they don't have to do a ton of work. So that easy apply application might not go anywhere, but the application that you submitted through the company site might get past that screening system faster.
Right.
And the other component is, now there's a good question here, like say having different versions of the resume, right? So Scott Garson came up with this aspect, which is a fantastic idea, but what I would recommend, or what I would say is, don't go version control in 500 different versions either.
That's right.
Because have maybe 2 to 3 different versions. That's enough, because your transferable skill set could be applied to many different roles. Find those roles and build one resume if you can. If they're not playing well together, like say if you have been in customer success, sales, marketing, and also operations, and other facets of operation like supply chain or logistics or anything, have 2 different versions of the resume, one for revenue generation, one for operations, because operations focuses more on cost reduction, time savings, process improvement more so, versus the revenue generation side focuses on rev gen or lead generation or followership or other components, right? So have 2 different versions of those resumes going out to 2 different types of opportunities, considering what they're really impacting. Because the company, there's 3 ways that you can impact on a company's bottom line: nonprofits, government, corporate. All of those facets follow the same trend, which is they're thinking about, okay, how we can get more donors if you're a nonprofit, how we can get more customers if you're corporate, right? Or how we can increase tax payers paying more taxes, or whatever the reason may be. So that's the revenue generation side of the business. And then also on the other side, the cost reduction, the time savings, the process improvement, that's the other side, which is the bottom line improvements they're trying to make. So you want to decide where you're going to be a good fit, and then target those areas and hone in on people, processes, and systems, and talk more of that. That's my final thought process when building content or talking to employers in an interview or networking. You want to bring those elements out to them right away. And you don't want to talk about saying, oh, yeah, I've done that. No, give them a reason why they should ask you another question, right? So make sure that you're kind of having more of a quick 1-minute example that you can come up with and explain that process through that example. It's much better than saying I'm a hardworking individual who is meticulous. Instead of all that jargon, give them a reason why, give them credibility by showing them proof of actual things that you have accomplished over the years.
Right. Let's go to Ann's question. Ann's got a good question. Ann, I'll throw it over to Chewy, but my first thought is there's so many people. How many millions of people do we have in the US? There's a fraction of people that are using these tools to really get ATS certified. So I really wouldn't worry too much about that. I'd more worry about tweaking the resume, being ATS qualified, friendly, to make sure you get through the systems and learn how to do that, or get a service that can do that for you, like the job helpers or somebody that can really help you do that, because that's going to be one of the keys to going forward. It's like anything. It's like every coffee shop. Why is there 100 different coffee shops in every town? Because everybody likes a little something different. So
Absolutely.
I wouldn't fear that. You're going to be much better off using ATS friendly keywords and techniques than not using them, for sure.
Absolutely. So, Ann Tiefer, thank you for the question. And everyone who asked a question, or anyone who has questions about their job search, or any other questions about their career, trying to pivot, ageism is kind of blocking you from getting through or getting past the screening process, talk to me. You can schedule time. You could go to the Job Helpers website. Let me share this with you real quick, so that way they can book time with me. It's a free session. We'll talk about your career. We'll make sure that we're discussing your resume as well at the same time. And then also, you can get a free resume review anytime that you like. So you can send it over. We'll run it through the applicant tracking system software program as well, and give you a full report of what's happening or what is happening with your resume and your situation. You can book time, as you can see. Thejobhelpers.com is the website. Someone like us will give you honest feedback. If you want to do it yourself, go for it. We have other tools like Job Pro Max as well that you can subscribe to. It's a subscription. But if you're having great difficulty or you don't want to do it on the fly or don't have the time because the holidays are arriving, we'll be happy to rework this content and get you to that 4 interviews for every 10 jobs type of situation. But there was a good question Anne asked. Anne, let me bring that up. That question is so important. So let me see.
While you're looking for that question, Chewy, while you're looking for that question, when you get somebody that's interested in you or you get an interview, one key component I didn't talk about is make sure you do some background on the company, what they're doing, where they're headed, what their key executives are, what they're doing in the industry, how do they fit in the industry. Make sure you're on with some data before you go in there and have a chat.
You bet. And to answer Anne's question, so if we're all using the same keywords and forming our profiles to be for the ATS, how will we be different, unique for a role? Great question, Anne. Thank you for bringing this up, right? So the easy answer is keywords can be different, slightly different for certain type of different roles. And the key difference here is your uniqueness that comes into play here, because you want to be able to match certain specific keywords with your experience. Like, say, for instance, let's take an older example I took earlier, which is cross-functional team collaboration. Say, Anne might have worked with different type of cross-functional collaborators or people in her team would be different versus Michael's previous teams, correct? Maybe she has managed or directly or indirectly managed people. Her experience is different from mine. So whoever has the best experience for the role is going to get picked. That's how they're going to pick you, right? So that's how you're going to really get ahead of your own competition. So the best way to do it is to make sure that you have the right information along with the keywords. Keywords could be the same thing that they're looking for. Cross-functional collaboration could have come up 75% of the time. That means you're talking about your unique experience and exposure working with cross-functional teams and collaborating with those teams to get the work done. You might have different timelines, you might have different results, outcomes, so they can make a decision fairly quickly. But at the same time, what you're doing to yourself is presenting it correctly, and majority of these employers will respond positively because a lot of people don't.
Hey, Chewy, I know we only have a minute or so left. Can you make sure you put back up there on how to contact you and your team for a consultation or a chat, and give them the link so they can upload their resume for free even. But to connect with you to see if they can get some help. Because this is a job. Looking for a job is a job, and you've got to kind of frame it like that. You've got to block out time during the day. You got to do the blocking and tackling. But I always say first things first. Get your resume in order. Get your conversation in order. Do your networking, whether it's in person or LinkedIn. Those are the key fundamentals to getting a job. So I want to thank everybody for joining today. Chewy, thank you for having me. I appreciate it for sure. It's been great seeing you again.
You bet. Michael, you want to give everyone a sneak peek of what you're planning to do, what your thought process is of the next steps of your thinking, your kind of precision 180. What can anyone talking to you get out of the value? I mean, yes, they can talk to you, of course, but what kind of things can you bring to the table for a job seeker?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I've got a lot of industry knowledge, from technology to SaaS to services to manufacturing to some pharmaceuticals. So I've got a breadth of experience, whether it be operationally, financial, and or sales and marketing. So if somebody's looking at a specific job, I may be able to give them some keys on what to talk about, how to talk about it, and then really review the particular company they're looking at. So if you want to get a hold of me, please do. Chewy, maybe you could throw my calendar link in there or something, and that'd be great.
Absolutely.
So I know we're at the top of the hour. I know people got to jump off, but really appreciate everybody coming on, and hopefully this was some help for your job search.
And upload your resume on the Job Helper. So TheJobHelpers, thejobhelpers.com website. We'll send you a link to upload your resume. You'll get a free review, and we'll kind of go from there. I'll get on a call with you, talk about what you could do better on your resume, in your career. What are some of the things that you can bring up in your own unique way? And then also interviews, networking. We cover it all, as you saw on the plans and pricing side, but this will be more complimentary. So looking forward to talking with each one of you, and have a productive day. And this will end our cast here. Thank you so much for coming.